You can't drive your car looking in the rearview mirror. If you keep looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to keep crashing your car. There's a reason why the rearview mirror is this big and the windshield is this big. The windshield is your future. It's where you're going. It's where you're headed. If you got someone who you feel has wronged you and you carrying that, that's like a cancer. And all it's doing is eating away at you. You know how many people I just let go so I could just go where God had for me? Let that be a lesson to you. You know what my father told me a long time ago? When a fool is talking, listen very carefully. Because knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. Look, man, if you got something that's been bothering you in your life, get past it. If God wakes you up, it's a sign from God that he ain't through with you yet. When he's done with you, you won't wake up no more. But as long as he got something for you, he keeps waking you up. Why don't you wake up to go see what that is? Whatever it was that's been on you, he done really brought you through it. Don't lay there wallowing in your past, man. Your past is back there.
And as you look back in the rearview mirror of your life, if you don't take control and understand that this is your moment, regrets, thoughts of, man, I wish I should have and I could have, and only what if, they will come alive. I come from a broken family. My moms and my dad set me down at a young age, and my dad was ripped out of my life. He was my role model, and he was yanked out of my life. 23 years old, sentenced to 15 years in prison. It would have been real easy for me to say, you know what, I give up. I come from a broken family, suicidal thoughts, self-harm. I've been homeless. I found myself sleeping on the streets. I battled drug addictions, you name it. If there was anybody that could have said, you know what, my past is bigger than my future, I give up, it would have been me. But I remember something that my father taught me when I was that kid. As long as there's breath in your lungs, there's hope in your heart, don't you dare quit. And he told me at the end of the day, Nathan, don't compare yourself, don't give up. And he said, listen, Nathan, see the problem, identify the problem, then figure out the solution. Don't let the problem consume you. And you don't stop until you figure it out. Giving up is not an option.
There are many people who believe because of where they're born, because of the area where they are in life and where they find themselves, that's all they know. They just have enough energy to complain about it. In fact, they believe that that's equivalent to doing something about it, just complaining.
There are things that happen to us that we have no control over. We didn't ask for it. We just have to deal with it. Broken families, losing loved ones. Some of us have experienced real tragic, difficult situations that we didn't ask for, but it was like somebody put this plate of food and puts it right in front of you and says, this is your life, deal with it. And you're like, man, I don't want it, but it's yours to figure it out.
Take full responsibility. It's not the seed, it's not the soil, it's not the sunshine, it's not the seasons that's to be criticized. Whatever you've reaped, it's your crop. Take responsibility. No complaint.
And we put our back against the wall because of some of the poor mistakes that we've made, and we gotta kind of own those. But you know what I realized, y'all? I was allowing things that I had no control over to control me. I used to blame my dad for everything growing up as a kid. I blamed him for my attitude. I blamed him for my drug use. I blamed him when I skipped school. He was my excuse for everything. And at the end of the day, I had no control over that situation, but I was giving it all the control over me. I'm not going to allow things that I have no control over to control me. I can control how I respond, and I can control what I do going forward. Take ownership. Stop making excuses. We want to put blame on anybody else and everybody else around us. When I've made mistakes, I just own it, man. We all make mistakes. We've all got stuff, and I've learned my mistakes set me up for future wins. I win or I learn. And I may make a mistake, but I own it radically. I don't play the blame game. If I was wrong, I make it, I claim it, and I move forward.
We all go through things that are unfair. People that do us wrong, the company let us go. It's easy to live with a victim mentality, thinking we're at a disadvantage. We can't do anything great. Look at how we were raised. We can't live happy. We've been through too much. As long as you accept that you're a victim, you're going to get stuck. You have to take the hand you've been dealt and make the most of it. That person that did you wrong, It may have been painful, but they didn't ruin your life. If they could stop God's plan, they would be bigger than God. Don't let one bad break, one difficult season cause you to be sour. When my father went to be with the Lord, I lost my best friend. We'd traveled the world together. Suddenly he was gone. I was tempted to think, God, where are you? Why did this happen? When we go through loss, that victim mentality will always come knocking at the door. We have to make the choice. Are we going to live bitter, thinking we're a victim of our circumstances? We're a victim of the loss? Or are we going to believe that God is in control, that His plans for us are for good? Instead of having a victim mentality, switch over to a victor mentality. That bad break is not how your story ends. God said in Isaiah, He will pay you back double for the unfair things that have happened. It may be unfair, but God is a just God. He knows who hurt you, what you're struggling with. He's not going to just bring you out, He's going to bring you out better. Get rid of that victim mentality. You're not a victim. God always causes you to triumph. That bad break wasn't fair. You didn't like it, but what you can't see is it set you up for double. And here's the key. Nobody can make you be a victim. You can go through things you don't like, you don't understand, but none of that can force you to have a victim mentality. You have to give permission to become a victim. I'm asking you to not give permission. Don't allow that victim mentality to enter your thinking. When unfair things happen, thoughts will whisper, just your luck. You're scarred now. Life will always be difficult. That's when you have to dig down deep and say, no thanks. I refuse to be a victim. Thinking that I've been shortchanged, I know God is still on the throne. What was meant for my harm, He's turning to my advantage. Think about Joseph in the scripture. His brothers were jealous of him and threw him into a pit. They ended up selling him as a slave. His dreams were shattered. He was a victim of his brother's jealousy, a victim of bad breaks. But Joseph didn't go there. He didn't sit around in self-pity. He didn't give up on life. He kept being his best, believing that God was in control. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph, and he was put in prison for something that he didn't do. Now he was the victim of this lady that was dishonest. 13 years after he was thrown into the pit, Joseph interpreted a dream for the Pharaoh. He was made the prime minister of Egypt. During those 13 years, practically every day, Joseph had to fight having a victim mentality. Thoughts would whisper, look at where you are. Your own family turned on you. This lady lied about you. Joseph's attitude was, I refuse to be a victim. I'm not a victim of my brother's jealousy, not a victim of this lady that lied about me. They did me wrong, but God said He would make it up to me. They tried to push me down, but I know God will lift me up. All the betrayals, the rejection was a part of God's plan. If Joseph had seen himself as a victim, he would have missed his destiny. And this didn't happen automatically. He refused to be a victim. He refused to let his mind rehearse all the negative things. He didn't give permission to a victim mentality. I wonder where you will be in 5 years if you will just keep refusing to be a victim. If you'll just not live bitter over who hurt you, not lose your passion because you're dealing with an illness, not give up on a dream because a door closed. Every voice will say, you're a victim. God's forgotten about you. Don't give it the time of day. God is watching you. He sees you shaking off the self-pity, being good to people that weren't good to you, giving it your best when you're not seeing progress. Suddenly doors are going to open. Suddenly you'll see promotion, dreams coming to pass, bigger than you've imagined. But when we say we're a victim, we're saying what someone did to me has limited my future. The scripture says, what God has purposed, who can annul? The only way it will stop you is if you start living like a victim. Shake that off. Those disappointments are setting you up for double. The closed door, the person that tried to make you look bad, it looks like they succeeded. God saw it. It was a part of His plan. It's setting you up for something bigger than you've imagined. What you can't see is that bad break is leading you to a new level. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph, caused him to be put in prison, but that was a necessary step to get him to the throne. We're not going to understand everything that happens along the way. These are tests. Will you keep the right attitude when it's not fair? Refuse to be a victim. Don't play that role. It may have been meant for your harm, but at some point, like with Joseph, God is going to turn it to your advantage. I met a young couple from New Orleans. They had just bought their first house there. The man had a good job. They had a little baby on the way. Life was good. Then the storm Katrina hit. They lost not only their home, but all their possessions, their car. His company closed down. They moved to Houston with just the clothes on their back. When I saw them, they were numb. Everything in their thinking said, you're a victim. Life will never be what it could have been. I told them what I'm telling you, that God knows what you've been through. But you have to do your part and refuse to be a victim. In self-pity, thinking you've seen your best days. Several years later, I met them after service. They had just moved in to their new house that they had built here. The man has a better job. They don't just have one child, they have 2 children. That's what happens when you refuse to be a victim. When you say no thanks to bitterness, no thanks to living defeated, God will take what was meant for harm and turn it to your advantage. Some of you have come from generations of abuse, things that were not fair. That victim mentality can be passed from generation to generation. Look what we've been through. We have a good reason to feel like a victim. This forever the victim mentality will try to take root. It will continue to be passed down until someone rises up and puts an end to it. Yes, there were things that were not fair, but this is a new day. The reason you're hearing this is because you're the one to break the cycle. I'm going to set a new standard. I'm going to live whole, free, expecting favor. In the scripture, the first generation that had this new mindset, they were the ones that God paid back for all that belonged to their family. Don't look to people to pay you. People can't make up for what you didn't get. Only God can. The Israelites had been in slavery for 10 generations. It wasn't fair, but God was keeping the records. After 430 years, God delivered them from the Pharaoh. You can imagine how they had become comfortable being a victim. On the way to the promised land, when they faced adversity, they said to Moses, let's go back to Egypt. They were saying, we're okay with being a victim. They came out of Egypt, but Egypt never came out of them. It's significant that the parents and grandparents, they never made it into the promised land. It's because they never got rid of a victim mentality. Victory starts in your thinking. As long as you feel like a victim, it's going to limit your destiny. You won't pray bold prayers. You won't expect God's favor. No matter what's happened in your past, abuse, lack, struggle, you're the generation that's going to set a new standard. We're not slaves. We're not victims. We are children of the Most High God. No more forever the victim. No more, my family has always struggled. It's just who we are. God is doing a new thing. Now do your part. See yourself differently. Have a new perspective. You're not a victim of your past. You are a victor. God is about to release freedom, favor like you've never seen. You've been raised up for such a time as this to take your family to a new level. I heard about this father. He was an alcoholic. He had small twin boys. He was angry and mean, cursed them out. These boys grew up and left home as soon as they could. One son became an alcoholic, never did anything productive. Someone asked him why he drank so much. He said, because my father was an alcoholic. The other son became very successful, talented, disciplined, respectful. His colleagues noticed that he never touched alcohol. They asked him why he didn't drink. He said, because my father was an alcoholic. He refused to be a victim any longer. Which son are you? Are you going to continue being a victim, or are you going to refuse to be a victim? You can't be a victim and go into your promised land. Always some reason to not move forward. I wasn't raised right. I came down with this illness. I lost a loved one. I know it's not easy, but you can't move forward if you're playing the victim role. You have to turn it over to God and live out of a place of wholeness, victory. Starts in your thinking. I wasn't raised in a healthy environment, but that's in the past. It didn't stop my destiny. Lost a family member. My company let me go. It was difficult, but I'm not bitter. I know God is going to cause all things to work out for my good. I refuse to be the victim. I refuse to let this limit my passion, cause me to give up on my dreams. That's what allows God to pay you back for the wrongs, to give you double for the unfair things. This is a choice that we have to make all through life. Are you going to live bitter, in self-pity? Or are you going to say, this wasn't fair, but God, I know you're still on the throne. Don't get stuck in the desert like the Israelites because you have a victim mentality. Be like their children. See yourself a different way so you can go into your promised land. No more forever the victim. Try a different approach. Forever the victor. Break that cycle. Where will you be in 5 years if you'll start refusing to be the victim? Every unfair thing that's happened to you has set you up for double. Now do your part. Play the right role. Be the victor.